As Zoe and her mother Elizabeth entered the cafe, the soft chime of the door's bell greeted them. Elizabeth glanced around, noticing their usual cozy spot by the window was taken, so she led Zoe to a table in the center. Zoe, a lively 6-year-old with curly hair and bright eyes, was bubbling with excitement, her laughter filling the room and embodying the joy of childhood. Looking around, Elizabeth noticed the familiar face of their regular waitress was missing, replaced by Sarah, a new server who approached with a tight-lipped expression. "What can I get you today?" Sarah asked coolly. Ignoring the chilly tone, Elizabeth ordered a turkey sandwich and milkshake for herself, and for Zoe, a bowl of cornflakes, a banana, and a chocolate milk. While waiting, Zoe happily chatted about school and her friends, her stories brimming with innocent joy. When the food arrived, they began to eat, and Elizabeth couldn't help but smile, watching Zoe enjoy her meal. But just as Zoe reached for her banana, her elbow accidentally knocked over her chocolate milk, sending a splash across the table and floor. "Careful, sweetheart," Elizabeth said, quickly reaching for napkins to clean up. It was an innocent mishap, nothing that couldn't be cleaned in a few seconds, but Sarah, watching nearby, interpreted it differently and marched over, eyes blazing. "What a mess! You need to control your child," she snapped, her tone sharp and cold. Elizabeth looked up, caught off guard and embarrassed. "I'm really sorry, it was an accident. We'll clean it up." But Sarah's face remained hardened. "This is a respectable place. We don't tolerate such behavior here," she said, her voice edged with disdain. Stunned, Elizabeth tried to stay calm. "We don't mean to cause trouble. Please let her finish her food and we'll be on our way," she offered, hoping to resolve the situation peacefully. "Enough. I said leave," Sarah demanded, crossing her arms, her scorn directed squarely at Zoe. Tears filled Zoe's eyes and Elizabeth felt her heart sink, seeing her daughter so distressed. Before she could respond, Sarah grabbed Zoe's arm, forcefully pulling her toward the door. "Out now! Mommy, she's hurting me!" Zoe cried, her small voice full of fear. Elizabeth's heart shattered for her daughter, knowing the spilled chocolate milk wasn't the real reason for their dismissal. She'd felt the chill in Sarah's greeting from the start, sensing the waitress's aversion. This wasn't unfamiliar to her. Since adopting Zoe, she had noticed how some people's attitudes changed upon realizing Zoe was her daughter. Questions often surfaced, with strangers sometimes bluntly asking if Zoe was hers or if her husband was of a different race. And when she was out with both Zoe and her husband, the inquiries could be painfully intrusive. Motherhood had been Elizabeth's dream, yet infertility had led her and her husband to adoption. Her yearning to share her love and provide a home brought her to Zoe, a vibrant, curious, and affectionate little girl who had been in the foster care system since birth. Meeting Zoe was love at first sight. Her laughter and boundless energy filled a part of Elizabeth's heart she hadn't known was empty. Her husband was equally enchanted by Zoe's warmth and spirited personality. The adoption journey was long and arduous, yet Elizabeth's resolve never wavered. Driven by her love for Zoe, she navigated the paperwork, home visits, and interviews with tireless determination. When Zoe finally came home, it was a day of pure joy, celebrated with a small welcome party for close friends and family. Elizabeth and Zoe quickly formed a profound bond, reveling in their time together. From bedtime stories to morning snuggles, every moment was a cherished memory, and Elizabeth had vowed to love and protect Zoe always. Zoe's soft cry pulled Elizabeth back to the present. Rising, she held Zoe's hand firmly. "Please do not touch my daughter. She didn't spill her drink on purpose, it was just an accident," Elizabeth defended, her voice steady but strained. Yet no one around them spoke up. The other diners merely watched in silence, forks hovering midair. Elizabeth's face flushed with a blend of anger and humiliation as she knelt to hug Zoe, whispering soft reassurances. Kneeling, she gently wiped away Zoe's tears. "Zoe, sweetie, don't be sad. Maybe the waitress didn't mean to be hurtful. How about we get some ice cream instead, and later I'll make your favorite meal. Would you like that?" Zoe nodded, her quiet acceptance breaking Elizabeth's heart. Taking her hand, Elizabeth led her toward the exit, choosing her daughter's well-being over a confrontation. Outside, the cool morning air offered some relief. Elizabeth hugged Zoe close, but her heart ached, seeing the effect this had on her. Suddenly, the roar of motorcycles filled the street as a group of bikers parked nearby. The lead biker, an older man with a gray beard, noticed their distress and approached, his demeanor surprisingly gentle. "Is everything all right?" he asked. Elizabeth hesitated, but shared a brief account of what had happened. The man, who introduced himself as Jack, listened carefully, his face darkening with disapproval at the waitress's behavior. "That's not right," he said firmly, then turned to his friends. "Let's go see about this." Jack invited Elizabeth and Zoe to join them in returning to the cafe. Reluctant but reassured by his sincerity, Elizabeth agreed. Together, they re-entered the cafe, the presence of the bikers drawing stares from patrons and staff alike. Sarah's face blanched at the sight of them. Jack approached her calmly, his voice steady but authoritative. "We understand there was a problem with a customer," he said. Sarah stammered. They made a mess. I asked them to leave." Jack's expression hardened. "A child spilled her drink. That's no reason to make her and her mother feel unwelcome. Our community doesn't tolerate this kind of treatment." The bikers nodded in solidarity, making it clear they expected things to be made right. The cafe manager, startled by the scene unfolding in his cafe, emerged from his office. "What's going on here?" he demanded, his gaze shifting between Jack and Sarah. But when he recognized Jack, his demeanor softened instantly. "Boss, I didn't expect to see you here. Your son just stopped by to pick up the ledgers." Elizabeth and Sarah stood speechless, realizing Jack wasn't just the leader of the biker group, he owned the cafe. Jack explained the situation, his voice calm and unyielding, sharing how his son had witnessed Sarah's treatment of Elizabeth and Zoe. Angered by the unfairness, Jack had brought his crew to address it. Turning to Sarah, the manager's expression hardened. "This is absolutely unacceptable," he snapped. Sarah stammered an apology, inching backward, but Jack stepped forward, his voice low and firm. "Apologize to the little girl." Blushing with shame, Sarah offered a quiet apology. Elizabeth accepted with a nod, but Zoe remained silent, hurt still visible in her eyes. Hoping to make amends, the manager offered Elizabeth and Zoe anything they'd like on the house, but the incident had soured their visit and Zoe was ready to go. Elizabeth thanked Jack and his friends but declined the offer. Just as they were preparing to leave, one of the bikers extended a different invitation, a meal on the house at another restaurant Jack owned. Touched and amazed by their kindness, Elizabeth agreed. The bikers then suggested an unexpected ride to their destination on the motorcycles, with a sidecar for Zoe. A mix of excitement and nerves washed over Elizabeth, but she accepted. Riding through the city streets, Zoe's laughter blended with the rumble of the engines, her eyes wide with delight. She felt like royalty, waving at passers-by as they rode. When they arrived at the restaurant, they were greeted warmly, with Zoe's spirits fully restored. Hugging her new friends, Zoe's joy was infectious, and Elizabeth's heart filled with gratitude. After their meal, Elizabeth and Zoe walked hand in hand to the nearby park, reflecting on the day's unexpected turns. As they strolled, Elizabeth looked at her daughter thoughtfully. "Zoe," she began gently, "what happened today wasn't fair. No one should ever be treated poorly because of how they look. But do you know what else we saw?" Zoe's eyes lit up with curiosity. "What, Mommy?" Elizabeth smiled. "We saw that good people will stand up for others even when it's difficult, like the bikers who helped us. That's the kind of person we should try to be." Zoe hugged her mother tightly, looking at her new doll. "I want to help people too, Mommy." At home that evening, Elizabeth and Zoe recounted the day's events to Zoe's father, discussing the importance of kindness and standing up for what's right. Later, as Elizabeth tucked Zoe in, she felt hopeful, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, their love and strength would guide them. The next day, news of the bikers' stand had spread, sparking conversations around town about acceptance and community. Friends and neighbors reached out with supportive messages inspired by the story. This story reveals the impact of discrimination and the strength found in standing up for others. The waitress's actions were wrong. Customers should be treated with equal respect, and misunderstandings can be resolved calmly and fairly. What do you think? How might the waitress have handled the situation differently to make everyone feel welcome? Let us know your thoughts and stay tuned for more stories like this one.